My name is Ashira Butler-Green, and I'm the program lead for the AAAS Annual Meeting. I will be co-leading this webinar with my colleague, Jordan Schwartzbach, who is the exhibition and sponsorship lead for our meeting. As this is a webinar format, you'll be able to hear me during the presentation, and Jordan and I will discuss the Q&A, but all attendees are muted. So if you have any questions, please click on the Q&A button and type your question in. We will keep attendees muted for the duration of this presentation. While we have reserved an hour for this webinar, we are not planning to take the full time. I will present the updates, and as mentioned, you can click on the Q&A button to type your questions throughout. Jordan will be actively monitoring the questions, and we will go through them at the end. Let's get started. As the 2021 annual meeting will be held virtually, we have updated our scientific session and career workshop formats. We believe these updates will benefit attendees regardless of whether they are attending the meeting via phone, computer, group party, or another format. In this session, I will describe our regular attendee profile, provide information about the updates to our scientific sessions and career workshops, as well as a few tips for successful submissions for both. I will also provide an overview of the timeline and whom to contact from our team with some targeted questions. If you have questions about the material presented, please feel free to type them throughout. At recent physical meetings, we've been fortunate to have attendees with a fairly balanced age range and gender. Over half of our attendees come from academia and have a PhD in their field. We also often host professionals in government and industry, as well as non-academic research institutions and others. While there may be some slight demographic shifts for the 2021 AAAS Annual Meeting, we expect and are fairly confident that our attendees will continue to be individuals who are enthusiastic about the impacts of research and developments in scientific and technological fields, and individuals who represent both specialist and non-specialist communities. Our recent meetings have also been some of the best covered scientific conferences worldwide. The 2020 annual meeting in Seattle generated over 1,400 mentions in major news outlets around the world. Coverage of our meeting included the Washington Post, Forbes, The Guardian, BBC, The Economist, India Today, The Independent, and more. Our attendees are also quite active on social media, and at the 2020 annual meeting, we had more than 8,000 unique accounts posting about our conference. So now that I've given you a bit of a sense of our context and our previous audiences, I would like to discuss updates to the scientific session submission and format for the 2021 annual meeting. So the submission site is currently open, and the deadline for both scientific sessions and career workshop submissions will be Tuesday, July 14th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. The focus of scientific sessions is on newsworthy and timely topics which are discussed and presented in a data-driven way. These submissions will be reviewed by volunteers who are knowledgeable of the field for the submission, as well as our program committee. At times, we have had up to a dozen people reviewing each submission. So, scientific sessions at our recent physical meetings consisted of panels with an organizer, co-organizer, 3 panelists, and an optional moderator and discussant. As you can imagine, we will be changing that format for the 2021 annual meeting. So we have re-envisioned this format. While in recent meetings, we had a 90-minute scientific session, for the 2021 annual meeting, we will have 3 separate pre-conference videos, each focusing on one of the speakers for the session. Then, during the live portion of our conference, from February 8th to 11th, we will have a 35-minute panel session, and I'll go into what both of those will look like momentarily. Afterwards, there will also be an opportunity for post-session discussions. So let's go into a bit more detail about how these scientific sessions will look. So part 1 are the pre-recorded spotlight videos. As mentioned, each session will have 3 videos, with each video focusing on a different speaker. All videos will be pre-released on a staggered schedule starting at the end of January, daily by track. Then we will have the live panels held February 8th through 11th with the live 35-minute group session with all panelists and a question and answer period, both with pre-collected questions and a live virtual audience. So, for this reason, our panel has shifted. The moderator will now serve as the host or MC, the timekeeper, and the referee to ensure that the dynamic both of the pre-recorded sessions and of the live session remain consistent. Speakers, as before, we have a maximum and minimum of 3 speakers. People have been enthusiastic in the past of having both a first and second author present a piece. For this meeting, it will be 1 speaker per presentation and 3 speakers per panel. That being said, we have introduced the respondent role. And the respondent will be somebody who is well-versed in the speaker's research. And every session must have at least 1 respondent that cannot be from any of the speaker's institutions. Although the minimum is 1 respondent, you are certainly welcome to have up to 3 respondents, 1 respondent per speaker. There will now be no discussants. I also want to note that a session organizer or co-organizer could serve in these roles, and we can talk about that in a bit. So, what are these pre-recorded presentations going to look like? As mentioned, each video will highlight a single speaker's work. So the moderator will introduce them, then the speaker will present their findings and the data, and then they will have a discussion with the respondent who has been matched with them, who's knowledgeable about their work, delving in a bit deeper into the speaker's findings and greater impacts. Then, at the end of the video, the moderator will provide concluding remarks. You may wonder why we are pre-releasing the videos. There are 2 main reasons for this. One is that you and we are fairly well aware by now that Zoom fatigue is real, and people can get a bit overwhelmed after being in live webinars and other formats over the course of a day. So given that we have many sessions, we really want to reduce them to virtual consumable bites that will not overwhelm people and their sensory experiences. We also want to account for the fact that at recent meetings, attendees and participants have mentioned to us that, you know, we've been fortunate to have so many sessions of interest, and sometimes they wish that they had more of an option to build the schedule and catch quite everything that interested them. So with the pre-recorded option, attendees can set their own timetable to view presentations of interest, avoid zooming out, and then attend the live sessions that they choose. So, given that these sessions are now going to be in a joint pre-recorded and live format, you may wonder, you know, what happens if people show up to the live session who haven't pre-watched the spotlight videos. This is possible, and to account for this, moderators will be asked to do a 5-minute recap at the beginning of the session so that there will be a brief orientation to the topics covered and to the panelists and respondents. That being said, after watching the session, paying attendees will still have access to the pre-recorded videos. Now, let's go over the live panel. So, the live panel, as mentioned, will first consist of the moderator welcoming the participants and giving a brief 2-sentence recap of each pre-recorded video. Then, the speakers will discuss how their findings relate to one another. Afterwards, there will be a question and answer period with the respondents related to how the different speakers' findings relate or don't relate for some reason, and questions will be taken from the live audience. At the end, the moderator will provide concluding remarks. We also believe that it is very important, in addition to having a robust scientific program, to also provide opportunities for participants, panelists, and attendees to connect with one another. So as mentioned, there will be an opportunity to continue the discussion about the live sessions after those 35-minute live periods have ended. There will also be additional networking opportunities during the live period of our conference, which again will take place from February 8th through 11th, 2021. So I hope that my description of these updates was clear, and if you have any questions, please take this time to click on the Q&A button and add your question, and Jordan will be reviewing and we'll go over them at the end. So you may be wondering how we are defining ecosystems and what our 2021 annual meeting theme, Understanding Dynamic Ecosystems, means. So I want to reassure you that we are defining ecosystems both concretely and abstractly. Every challenge or project involves a system of stakeholders, and the 2021 AAAS Annual Meeting provides the opportunity to discuss how those different stakeholders interact and contribute to progress in a range of topics. In so doing, this annual meeting will highlight how science, engineering, technology, and policy are creatively harnessed to address underlying problems in various spheres in the hopes of creating sustainable change. As part of the annual meeting theme, each year in recent years, a few different research challenges have been identified. These are challenges which the program committee believes relate particularly well to the annual meeting theme. However, you are certainly invited to submit proposals on topics outside of this theme, given that those additional proposals and additional topics are newsworthy, timely, and help to advance the field which will be discussed. in those proposals. So that being said, let's go over those research challenges. They are COVID-19, toxins and pollution remediation, artificial intelligence, robotics, nanotechnology, and human-machine interface applications, modeling, both traditional methods all the way through quantum computing, weathering extreme climate and geological changes, microbiomes, genetic engineering challenges, social ecosystems, systems of interaction and community building, both in person and virtually, and invasive species. Again, this is certainly not an exhaustive list of all topics that we would be interested in covering at the meeting, but if you happen to have a proposal in mind that aligns with these, there will be a space to note that in your application. So, given that we've discussed the update to our format, we've discussed our theme, I now want to provide some general advice on the ingredients for a successful scientific session proposal. Scientific session proposals should highlight inter- and cross-disciplinary collaborations and discoveries. They should be newsworthy and cover timely topics with broad relevance for the interdisciplinary AAAS audience, and they should showcase the diversity of the scientific and technological community. Successful proposals will demonstrate groundbreaking research results or new angles for approaching a topic. They will focus on multiple projects, not just one. And in the event that the topic relates to policy recommendations or policy evaluation, the session will still be data-driven and discuss the impacts of that data and how it relates to policy. I also want to note that representing the diversity of our scientific and technological community is critical. As such, we have identified a few dimensions of diversity that we wish the program committee wishes to be represented in proposals. So those dimensions of diversity are gender, race and ethnicity, scientific discipline, institution, geographical area, and career stage. In the submissions, you will be asked to identify which dimensions of diversity have been represented in your session, and meeting these different dimensions of diversity will both strengthen your proposal just on principle and also will be taken into account when evaluating the proposal. Now that we have covered some things that you would be well advised to do, I want to cover a few don'ts. Please don't submit an incomplete proposal. We will not be extending the deadline for our proposals, and due to the extension in the deadline for the proposals, it will be necessary to remove any proposals that are incomplete after July 14th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So, related, don't wait until after the deadline to submit, as we are not planning to extend the deadline beyond July 14th. Lastly, don't include high-profile speakers if you have no connection to them. When you identify the individuals on your panel, you will note whether they are confirmed or invited. And sessions with a majority of confirmed speakers are generally considered stronger than those with only invited speakers. In addition, speakers will be contacted in the event that your session is approved, and you want to make sure that people are aware of what they have signed up for and that they already have relationships with the session organizers. So now that we have gone through the updates to the scientific session submissions format and some tips, I would like to invite you, if you have questions that have not yet been covered, to click on the Q&A button, type in your question, and Jordan will be monitoring those. The next part of this webinar will be about updates to the career workshops format. Then I will go over the timeline, so different deadlines over the next few months, and identify some members of our team who can answer targeted questions. Then we'll go through the Q&A. Okay, so career workshops. The submission site for career workshops is currently open, and the deadline for submission, as with scientific sessions, is Tuesday, July 14th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. The focus of career workshops is students and scientists who are focused on seeking STEM careers and or sharpening or supplementing their skills. These career workshop submissions will be reviewed by the program committee. In the past, the format of our workshops was a bit different. We had a coordinator, a co-coordinator, up to 3 speakers, and we held those workshops in our publicly accessible expo. For our 2021 AAAS Annual Meeting, we have re-envisioned the career workshops as follows. So in recent years, we had a 90-minute workshop. For 2021, we will have a live 60-minute workshop with 1 to 2 activities to be facilitated over the course of the workshop, as well as requesting presenters and organizers to put together a downloadable handout for attendees. Our hope is that, through these activities and the handout, people will leave with tangible materials, both, whatever kind of processing they themselves have done, as well as the handout with an overview of your session. Successful career workshops highlight opportunities or resources, explore a variety of career choices and routes, sharpen science communication skills, possibly help with life and work skills, but they are not a venue to discuss scientific findings. If you have done research on issues related to careers in science and technology and would like to present on that research and the implications for the community, we recommend that you submit a scientific session proposal, as that content would be better suited to that format. So those are the updates to the career workshop format and a few tips as to what will make a career workshop submission successful. We are now moving towards the end of this webinar. I'm going to go over the timeline, and then we'll talk about a few people to contact with different questions. So our timeline. July 14th is our submission deadline for both scientific sessions and career workshops. In late July, reviewers will evaluate submissions. In August, on August 4th, the e-poster submission site will open. In mid-August, the program committee will choose the scientific program. In September, the registration for the 2021 AAAS Annual Meeting will open. In mid-October, the scientific program will be posted. And on October 22nd, the e-poster submission site will close. If you have questions about that timeline, I invite you to click the Q&A button and type your question in, and we will discuss it in a moment. So now we will go through a few people to contact. So I would be very happy to correspond with you regarding any questions about scientific sessions or career workshops between now and our deadline. If you would be interested in having a consultation session and talking about your idea, I would be happy to schedule that and speak with you either for a half an hour or an hour as needed. And my email is agreene@AAAS.org or AAAS.org. If you would like to discuss exhibits or sponsorships, please contact Jordan Schwartzbach. His email is JSCHWARTZBACH@AAAS.org or AAAS.org. If you would like to discuss social media or our website, please contact Tatev Sargsyan. Her email is tsargsyan@AAAS.org. If you have any other general questions, please contact the director of the Office of Meetings and Special Events, Nikki Maylett, at nmayellett@AAAS.org. So we've now come to the end of the formal presentation, and I'm happy to hear what questions people have, and we can discuss it. So Jordan, on to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ashira, so much for all that great information. We definitely have a lively Q&A session. So the first question that I want to bring up is there was some conversation about how long the scientific sessions will be. Is it still 90 minutes? How long should these pre-recorded spotlight sessions? If you could just recap that quickly, that would be great.
So, in terms of the pre-recorded sessions, we will be providing training on the shape of those pre-recorded sessions and some guidance recommending software to use. And Jordan, can you provide the second part of it?
How long will the online sessions be, the live recordings?
Oh, sure. They will be 35 minutes long. So this will provide an overview of the session, both for people who listen to the pre-recordings and people who are just arriving, as well as an opportunity for panelists to discuss their work with one another, an opportunity for the respondents, again, to engage with them as a group and bring in questions from the live audience. So we hope that for those who do view the recordings prior to the live session, they will have a chance to think deeply about those presentations and bring substantive questions to those sessions. For attendees who might not have had a chance to listen to those sessions prior to the live event, this is a chance to introduce them to the topic with the opportunity for them to view the individual spotlight recordings after the fact.
Great, thanks so much. Another question that came up a few times is, with COVID-19 definitely dominating the news today, yes. Are there, can you talk about how, while we'll address COVID-19, how we're going to ensure that it won't dominate the entire conference?
Absolutely. So for those who are new to our meeting, we have 24 different disciplinary sections. So that covers natural science, social, medical, technical, and other aspects of science and engineering. And so across that, there will be a variety of topics, and reviewers will help to ensure that we have a range of topics. Absolutely. I can understand why you would ask that question. I wouldn't worry too much about that, because I think a lot of people have been doing research and have done research, prior to and during this period, that they might not have had an opportunity to share, or they'll be revisiting their labs. And so we're very much looking forward to our meeting in February as a chance to hear all of the things that people have been working on. I hope that's helpful.
Great, thanks so much for explaining that. Another question is concerning the format. Someone asked, can you explain more on how we expect attendees to be fully oriented if they do not watch the pre-recorded videos with just a 2-minute recap, and how we plan on preventing the panelists from just reiterating their findings again?
Sure. So we have a pretty robust training schedule for the different participants in our meeting. And this year, we are going to add an orientation for session organizers once they've been accepted in early autumn, where we will talk about ways of ensuring that that doesn't happen. And we also work with speakers. We have a separate training session with speakers, but it will end up we will end up communicating that message and some strategies to all participants in the panels.
Great, thanks. Another question that was asked is, are undergraduates able to participate and submit proposals for scientific sessions?
They are. We are trying to find different ways to broaden the career stage representation of those at scientific, of those in the scientific sessions. My guess would be that undergraduates are primarily working closely with faculty on doing their research projects, and as such may be best suited to present on their independent research for e-posters. And there is an e-poster competition, and as mentioned, that will open over the summer, and there will be more details about that. If there is an undergraduate who would be interested in being on a scientific session and putting one together, I would encourage them, just as we would encourage senior scientists, to ensure that there is a diversity of career stage. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. Another question that's come up is, when will the decision, and for that matter, who makes the decision for the final programming at the AAAS Annual Meeting?
So the final decision is made by the program committee members. These are people who serve multi-year terms, are leaders in their various fields, represent different disciplines across our membership, and they are quite well acquainted with our recent meetings and interested in not only continuing to have the range and caliber of research that has been presented in the past, but also to improve in different ways. So that is why we are available to provide this sort of advice, and I am available to have these consultations, because it is not a conflict of interest for us. We don't make those final decisions. Yeah.
And then is there any way for those holding PhDs and MDs to help facilitate the selection of the symposia and career workshops?
Indeed, there is. So the first round of review is done by volunteer reviewers. So ideally, these are reviewers with an MD or PhD, and they apply on our website at AAAS.org/meetings. And as part of the application, they identify their areas of specialization. So they need to apply by July 3rd, and then the portal for submissions closes July 14th, and then in this interim period before the reviewing period opens, reviewers are matched with sessions that align with their area of specialization.
Great. And then with this new format, will we still be holding plenary addresses?
We will. They will be held around the same time as normal. And to that end, we will be scheduling sessions in Eastern time, but in so doing, be sensitive to those who are outside of our time zone.
Great. And then a question that came up is how can we, I'm assuming we as in the submitters, can include social justice, equity, and inclusion given the state of everything going on, and what outreach has been done or can potential symposia proposals do to enhance their application?
So on our end, we are continuing to try and ensure that individuals across the different stages of their scientific and technological careers, and individuals who represent the actual diversity and range of those in scientific and technological careers know about our meeting and are able to submit. We did discuss the dimensions of diversity that we have identified, and these dimensions have been identified in years past as well. This year, we are asking for people to literally check the boxes as to how their sessions are representative. We welcome sessions on diversity, equity, and inclusion and issues of justice in the world of science and technology. And if you know of somebody who you think would be a great fit, who might not know about our meeting, we absolutely encourage you to share information with them about the meeting. This recording will be posted to our website as well. And again, you have our emails, and we would be very happy to speak with anybody who's interested in proposing a session.
Great. This question refers specifically to the career workshops. Mm-hmm. What ratio is expected to be devoted to speakers versus the facilitated activity? Is there a cap on the expected time for speaking?
The speakers, I imagine, would be facilitating the activities. So across the 60 minutes, the request is basically to conduct at least one, if not two, different activities.
Great. Another question that came up was in regards to online science days with the e-activities and kids. And Ashira, I'm happy to discuss this one. Information about those special events, as well as if you're interested in pre-event activities or sponsorships, that will be announced at a later date. If you have specific questions, please feel free to shoot me an email at jschwartzbeck@AAAS.org or meetings@AAAS.org, as that's easier to spell than my last name. And I'm happy to discuss those options with you. Let's see.
I want to
another. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the most recent one um, asks, would sessions addressing equity and inclusion issues in higher education be considered as education proposals? Not necessarily. It really depends whether whether you're interested in focusing on a specific discipline or on education as a larger entity in terms of just providing environments for success and that kind of thing. That being said, you'll see when you go into the submission portal that you can identify a primary and secondary topic for which to be considered. So you might, in the event that this is what you'd like to talk about, you might want to identify whatever that specific discipline is, and then either education, societal impacts, something like that.
Great, thanks, Ashira. Another question is about networking at the meeting. One of the benefits in the past is how people are able to engage with one another. How do we hope to address that in the virtual format around the symposia sessions?
Well, I would say we are looking at multiple options, and we will have more details on that to follow. But we are definitely planning on and excited about the opportunity that we are given through the virtual environment to have an even more global meeting. We think there is potential for that. So given that, options for people to connect, perhaps people who haven't been able to come to our physical meeting in the past, and we hope will be able to attend our physical meeting in the future.
Great, and something that I just want to add and jump in on is with the networking is a great place for that would be in our virtual exhibit hall. So if your organization would like to, have an avenue for conversations with a wide variety of scientists and those interested in the variety of scientific disciplines that we bring into our conference, please, again, just let me know. It's a great way to be able to engage with our attendees, which, as Ashira mentioned, we expect to really, we expect to expand this year, outside of what the physical realm kind of confined us in. So we're very excited for these new opportunities and what it will look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another question is regarding the workshops. If they're conducting 1 to 2 activities, is it safe to assume that there will be brief periods of silence for participants to work on the exercise? Do you think that would be okay to have those brief moments of silence?
Sure. Yes. Nobody will be testing to ensure that you have filled every moment of the 60 minutes with sound. Really, what we're trying to do through the revision to that format is to ensure that even though people are technically behind screens, that the experience is as dynamic as possible and that they are able to get tangible and concrete takeaways and advice. So absolutely, if there are moments where you want people to reflect, write a couple sentences, maybe, you can certainly use the different chat functions and things like that. And once sections have been approved, as I mentioned, we will go through kind of what those platforms look like and some of the options that are available, which could inform the kind of activity or the way that you conduct that activity.
Great. I think we have addressed all the questions in the Q&A. If I missed any, I do apologize, but we will be creating an FAQ list on our website when we post this recording, as well as the slides to the presentation. So Ashira, do you have any last words you'd like to share with our attendees?
We are so appreciative of your time, spending time with us obviously afternoon for us, but perhaps a different time for you. We hope that by presenting these updates, it gives you some clarity and a sense of the kind of submissions you'd like to do. Again, I want to just reiterate, if you have questions, things that were not covered, you want some advice, please reach out to us, given any of these topics, our program, our sponsorship, our web presence and social media, or any other general questions, and we'll be very happy to talk with you. And we hope to see you at the meeting.